Morning everyone, it's time for the phone-in, and today we're going to be focusing on Uyghur Muslims in China. Does the UK have a responsibility to help Uyghur Muslims? Would you boycott brands from China? Should the UK put trade sanctions on Chinese goods? Should Islamic countries, places such as Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, be doing more? Let me know your thoughts right now. Satellite images have shown large facilities that look like prison camps springing up in the last few years. Hundreds of thousands were detained for supposed re-education. And last year, the BBC was given access to what the Chinese describe as schools and campaigners describe as thought transformation camps to get rid of alleged extremist thoughts. Now, China claims they're taking action after decades of separatist violence. The Chinese ambassador was confronted by Andrew Marr on Sunday with images of hooded and bound people being put onto trains in the Xinjiang province. Let's listen back to their conversation.
Can I ask you why people are kneeling, blindfolded and shaven and being led to trains in modern China? Why? What is going on there?
I do not know where you get this videotape. You know, sometimes you have a transfer of prisons and prisoners, you know, in any country.
But just what is happening here, Ambassador?
I do not know where did you get these video clips.
These have been going around the world. They've been authenticated by Western intelligence agencies and by Australian experts who say these are Uyghur people being pushed on the trains and taken off.
Let me tell you this. The so-called Western intelligence keeping up make this a false accusation against China.
Now, Nurisman Abdul Rashid is a Uyghur Muslim who left China in 2013, now lives in Turkey. She hasn't been able to contact her parents and brothers for 3 years, has been told they're serving long sentences for thought crimes.
I just call them once in a week, but after 18th of June 2017, no one answered any of my phone calls, and I just keep trying and they didn't get any kind of information. And after 2 or 3 months, I don't exactly remember, and I learned that my father and my brothers are in study. On February 2018, one of my friends told me there is no one left in your home. All of your family members are in study. I was shocked because what they are studying, it's almost 2 years, because my father is 54 years old. He's a government worker. He was retired. And my mother is 51 years old, and my 2 brothers, they are the businessmen. What they are learning. So I just try to get some information and stalking on social media. On 15th of June 2020, I was informed by the Chinese embassy in Turkey that all of my family members are in prison.
So should we intervene? How does the UK react here? Do we have a responsibility to help Uyghur Muslims? What can we do as well? Boycott trade? Tougher sanctions? China is one of the most powerful nations in the world. Would intervening be detrimental? Are diplomatic talks even possible here? And there are reports from an investigation carried out by AP that children who are born as Uyghur Muslims in China are not allowed to be called Muhammad, given Quranic names. And during Ramadan, operatives, agents went around to check that Uyghur Muslims weren't fasting by checking to see if they'd eaten. I want to know how you feel about this. Get in touch, share your thoughts now.
Asian Network's Big Debate.
Call 03459 440 445.
You can also text 81869 and WhatsApp the programme 07920 500 200. I mean, there are so many questions here, aren't there? Why are people more vocal about places such as Palestine, the Rohingyas, Kashmirs than the Uyghurs? Is it because it's happening in China? Is it because Islamic countries aren't speaking out? Is it simply because there's a lack of awareness around the situation there? The amount of media coverage over the last few years coming out of China has been quite limited. Is that also the reason? I want to hear from you on the programme right now. Get in touch, 81869. And if you are someone who actually doesn't feel comfortable or confident talking about this because you don't think you know enough, well, ask a question. What would you like to know? We now have an expert that we can talk to here as well on the programme to tell us a little bit more. That's Kerry Allen, China media analyst for the BBC Monitoring. Kerry, morning. Thank you for your time. For our listeners who don't know, tell us a little bit about Uyghur Muslims.
So there are roughly 11 million of them in an area of Western China, which is known as Xinjiang. And Xinjiang's quite different to the rest of China in that, I mean, it's an autonomous region, and in China as a whole, there are 31 different regions, kind of like we've got counties here in the UK. And in most areas of China, the population is over 90% ethnic Han Chinese. But in Xinjiang, it's roughly 50-50 Han Chinese and Uyghur Muslims. So yeah, these are largely located in the west of China, and they're people who obviously practice Muslim religious activities. So yeah, very, very different to China as a whole. And China's population is 1.4 billion people.
And why is the spotlight on Uyghur Muslims now? Have they been facing persecution for years, something that the Chinese government denies? But have they been facing these sorts of situations for years?
There have been long-term criticisms of the way that China's majority Han ethnic government very much treats people in Xinjiang, that the idea that they want to be brought in line with the rest of China. I mean, there have been concerns from China's government media that these people might be susceptible to terrorism because of their location close to the west of China and countries like Afghanistan. So this is one of the concerns that's come out in China. But also rights groups say that these people are placed under intense surveillance and they're having to give, for example, DNA samples, biometric samples, and they're treated very differently to the rest of the Chinese people. So there's this big debate here about how they should be treated, but also Xinjiang's media environment in general is so tightly scrutinized. I mean, I think back to 2009 when I was living in the country. There was, for 6 months, the internet was cut off in Xinjiang, so people didn't have any access to any media whatsoever about what was happening there. So for a long period of time, there has been a lot of concern about what happens in Xinjiang.
And why is the spotlight on what is happening there now? Is it because we're actually starting to find out more about these schools, as they're being called?
Yes, so there was a BBC investigation a few years ago about that showed on Google Maps that these schools were being developed, that were almost, I mean, there've been an argument that they're either concentration camps and that these Uyghur people are being taken into these camps and being made to renounce their faith and practice certain things in line with the Han Chinese people. But also more recently, there's been drone footage which has circulated online, which seems to show people being blindfolded and led away to these camps. I mean, I think back to the 1950s and 60s. It was very common in general that Xinjiang was thought of in China as a huge area to send prisoners because it's got a huge landmass. I mean, Xinjiang in itself is about the size of Iran. It's absolutely huge, has a huge agricultural kind of industry there. But yeah, particularly because of the Turkic Muslims who live there are questions about whether they are being placed under continued surveillance, whether things have just not changed in recent years whatsoever.
Is it, Kerry, is it just surveillance, or what have the BBC and others found to be taking place in the Xinjiang province?
Well, we've also seen reports on forced sterilisation. We've seen reports on people Uyghur Muslims being forced to intermarry with Han Chinese people. So the ideas that are coming out, I mean, rights groups are constantly pressing that people in this region are basically, it's a form of ethnic cleansing almost, that they're being made to lose their religion, made to lose their ethnicity, and that China's increasingly trying to make Xinjiang and the Xinjiang people more in line with the Han Chinese. So it's just another region in China. Yeah,
the school authorities did also invite the BBC into those re-education centres as well, didn't they? And to try and, as they say, prevent any extremist views, which is what they were saying. What's China's justification for how Uyghurs are being taken into these so-called thought transformation camps. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, they say that there are a number of people in this region who are developing terrorist thoughts because of their close proximity to terrorist groups in Central Asia. So they say there's the logic behind this. But yeah, there's been this huge media nervousness in general. I mean, I know from people who work in our China bureaus that although they were invited in, they found it very difficult to access certain areas of Xinjiang on the road. So they were traveling in their cars trying to visit these camps originally, and suddenly car points were being set up and police were arriving and telling them to turn around. So there's still a lot of, it's very, very difficult to get access into Xinjiang. But the government does want to try and show that it has transparency, and it's very common in the media to see lots of pictures of Xinjiang as this beautiful scenic area that the government says people are welcome to access. But I know just from living in China that it's very, very difficult to get into Xinjiang and to just freely travel around.
It's interesting you talk about its geographical location there. For people who haven't seen it on a map, tell us where it is in location to places such as Afghanistan.
It's it's right up, because it's so big. It's on the border with a number of countries. So in China's proximity, it's right up in the northwest. But yeah, it's absolutely huge. I mean, it's one of the biggest areas of China as a whole. So it's very spread out. It's got a lot of agriculture. It's very scenic. People live far apart. But yeah, you would think somewhere like that's classed as largely rural there wouldn't be so much surveillance. But I know people who've accessed have had to hand their phones over, and certain apps have been installed on them, and there is so much surveillance there. But yes, it's on the border with so many countries because of its size.
What's the UK government's stance then on how China is treating Uyghur Muslims? What has been said?
Well, we've heard a lot recently from the government, Dominic Raab in particular, saying that there's, that there is criticism and that China needs to be placed under much closer surveillance because of the way it treats its Uyghur people. But China, in response, just says that Xinjiang is a part of China and that it has nothing to do with the UK, and that it continues to show that people in Xinjiang are not being treated unfairly. So there's often, I mean, I've seen over the years, it's common to see in newspapers criticisms of Western media for saying that, for example, during Ramadan, people are not allowed to fast in this region. It's saying this is outright. It's an outright lie by the West. But obviously one of the things that we're kind of taking into account now is that more and more people have social media, more and more people have mobile phones. So there are ways that people are getting messages out. And yes, for example, this drone footage that's circulated recently. So this puts China more and more in the spotlight to respond to this. But the answer has not changed in a number of years. China has just outright said, our Xinjiang people are treated fairly and equally, and there is no repression whatsoever of this group within China.
So we're going to be speaking to Ravi Singh in a moment, and also Rahima Mahmood, who's the director of the UK World Uyghur Congress. Rahima, thank you very much for your patience. Coming to you next. But Kerry, one more for you. Anand Singh has got in touch with us saying, my point goes on a slight tangent to the actual persecution, but it's important to raise. Mesut Ozil was thrown under the bus by Arsenal Football Club when he tried raising awareness of the Uyghur struggle. This was an attempt to be political by the club, yet we've taken a knee in support of the BLM. If this is not hypocrisy, I'm not sure what is. But more importantly, why is it some struggles arising from the East are not given the same platform as others from the Western world? ECB, English Cricket Board, condemned Moeen Ali when he wore wristbands in support of his views on Gaza, yet they also decided to take a knee in support of BLM as well. Very interesting thought there from Anand. Do you agree? What's your take at home? Do you think some issues are given more support than others? Let me know. 03459 440 445. But yeah, Kerry, just very quickly for our audience, tell us what happened with Mesut Ozil. He commented on this, didn't he?
Yeah, this was fascinating. So he posted a tweet in support of the Uyghur Muslims and criticised China for how he saw the treatment of them. And what quickly happened, I mean, this was in December 2019, so not that long ago, China swiftly took Arsenal matches off of its TV programs and said that it wasn't going to show them. And obviously with the Premier League restarting now, I mean, one of the things I've been looking at today are questions about whether Arsenal matches will be shown in China. There is clear sensitivity about this and criticism. So yeah, it could be that companies or individuals are punished in relation to criticisms about the Uyghur Muslims.
Is that a reason why people aren't speaking out, countries aren't speaking out? Let me know your thoughts. There's also news about the fact that Nike and Apple are actually pulling out now of China because of information that they have found. Right, let's go to Rahima Mahmood here, then, Director of the UK World Uyghur Congress. Rahima, thank you so much for your time. What's your take on this? Does the UK, does the West have a responsibility to intervene here?
Thank you for having me. And I do believe every human being and every country has a responsibility to intervene. And my first call would be UK must declare it as genocide, because we have plenty of evidence now, mountains of evidence building up. Working as an interpreter, translator, I have come across so many evidence and personal statements, leaked classified documents, and these drone images, videos. But up until now, the international world failed the Uyghurs, our people. In 2018, August, when UN first time acknowledged that when they said, we believe up to 1 million Uyghur and other Turkic Muslim minorities are locked up in this so-called camp, re-education camp. China denied it, completely just denied the existence. And then 2 weeks later, after presenting them with all the satellite images, and they said this is vocational camp. And a lot of journalists started reporting the situation, and I thought there is hope. Something is going to happen. And I thought the Western world especially will take some action. But nothing happened, apart from very weak condemnation. And that drone image and the video footage actually appeared last year. It was all over television, but it was just a flash as a news and passed, gone.
Rahima?
Yeah.
Well, firstly, I want to know your thoughts. I mean, we had the Chinese ambassador who was on the Andrew Marr show on Sunday. He was showing images of hooded, bound people put onto trains in the Xinjiang province as well, and denied that this was going on, denied that they were being taken away, didn't know what that was, basically called it fake news. When you watched that interview, whether it was live or watched it back, how did you feel? What was going on through your mind?
Well, I knew he would just deny it. I knew because, I lived in that system, in that country, and I know what it is like. The whole propaganda based on lies, the Chinese propaganda based on lies. I witnessed the 1989, Tiananmen movement, although I wasn't at the square when massacre happened. But I know what was like aftermath of that Tiananmen movement, how, Chinese government made it look like a riot, So it is very common. It's not surprising. Even when we had those two very huge classified documents leaked last year in November, and when Chinese government, not Chinese government, the embassy was asked to make comments, and it was exactly saying fake news.
The Chinese embassy, we have tried to get them onto the program today to talk a little bit about this. So far, we've had no response, but they deny all allegations of persecution of Uyghur Muslims. They say it's China basically says it's worried about extremism. That's a right of any nation, isn't it, to be worried about extremism and trying to prevent extremism from taking place?
This so-called extremism or so-called terrorist attacks in the region, none of which was independently verified. It's pure claim from the Chinese government. There's never allowed any independent investigators into the region. And even if there are some incidents which we disagree, then you cannot justify to intern up to 3 million population. We just heard a sister there that her entire family, just the ordinary, professional people, taken in and not knowing what happened to them. And, when you're listening to horrific details of torture, rape, and all sorts of atrocities, and you can imagine, what is life like for the Uyghurs. Yeah. I am Uyghur myself. I lost contact with my family for the last 3 years. I couldn't go back to my country for the last 20 years just because of my activity, because of, I speak up for my people.
When was the last time you spoke to your family?
I spoke to my eldest brother in January 2017, and he told me, leave us in God's hand. We leave you in God's hand too. That was the last, and his voice was shaky when he said that. After 2 months, I couldn't get through to any of my siblings. I have 9 siblings there, 4 brothers and 5 sisters. We were very, very close. And now they dare not send me a message. I dare not to call them, and I don't know what happened to them.
What do you think has happened to them?
I don't want to think.
Yeah. Okay.
I try to block out any bad thoughts, because in order for me to focus on what I'm doing, my campaign and my work, I have to be positive. If I feel distressed or worried, it actually won't help me. So I try to just believe in God, and that one day I would see them. That's all I can do.
10:55 here on The Big Debate. I want to hear from you right now. If you're listening at home, what do you make of what Rahima has been saying, trying to block out what's happened to her family, her elder brother, her other siblings, to carry on her work? If you've seen the video which came out last week of Uyghur Muslims being handcuffed, blindfolded onto trains, drone footage that's been confirmed by Australian authorities, what did you think about that when you saw it? Get in touch, let me know right now, 03459 440 445. You can also text me, 81869, and WhatsApp 07920 500 200. Here's a WhatsApp here, an email, saying, Dear Big Debate team, regarding Chinese concentration camps, I'm really proud of Sir Keir Starmer's questions yesterday to the Prime Minister. Looks like we're united as a nation on this matter, and yes, we should be concerned with this for any fellow human being, but especially as we are South Asian. These are our Muslim brothers and sisters. Religious and the human right to freedom of religion is a cause very close to the hearts and minds of Sikhs, and we will always stand for social justice and freedom. It's our duty. Thank you for that email, Rav. China denies their concentration camps, says they're education centres. And I want to hear from you right now. We're going to speak to Ravi Singh and Kieran in one moment. Still got Kerry Allen here from BBC Monitoring. So if you have any questions about what's going on, get them into me and I will ask Kerry on your behalf. But Rahima, just one point to you. We were hearing there about the stance that the UK government is now taking, the words which have been said by the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, saying these are human rights issues here. You mentioned to me that the stance, the messaging for so long has been weak. Do you still think it's weak, or do you think it's actually starting to now, the rest of the world, the West, is starting to take notice, starting to be a little bit stronger?
I think it is changing. It's changing. And from media to the government, and more parliamentarians are now speaking up. So for that, I have hope. And also a lot of lawyers, QCs lately also voiced and wrote articles. For example, Ben Emerson, QC, wrote a very powerful article 2 days ago on the Times. He called it genocide and analyzed it, why it is a genocide. So we have a lot of high-profile, legal experts are calling this as genocide. And that's why I think if the world recognizes it as genocide and act accordingly, then there is hope. So even if they don't recognize it as genocide, clearly the crime against humanity is already proven. It's a proven situation at the moment. And therefore, I believe Magnitsky sanctions that should be, immediately imposed on the people responsible, those perpetrators are responsible for the atrocities. And so, like officials who enforce sterilization programs.
Yes. Rahima, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being on the program and talking to us more about this. It's 10:58. Right, I want to hear from you at home. Listening to Rahima there from the director of the UK World Uyghur Congress. I want to hear your thoughts. 03459 440 445. Does the UK have a responsibility to help Uyghur Muslims? Would you boycott brands from China? Nike, Apple have been urged to boycott China, to pull out of China. Is that something that you would want them to do as well? Do you think brands need to take a stand here? Are you someone who is going to stop buying products that are made in China? Let me know your thoughts. 81869. We're going to speak to Kiran and Ravi now. We've still got Kerry Allen as well to answer your questions. So get them in if you have any questions about Uyghur Muslims and what's going on in China. But Ravi, Kiran, let's get you both up. Let's have a little chat to the pair of you now. Ravi, I'll come to you first. What do you think? Does the UK have a responsibility here to help Uyghur Muslims?
I think good morning to everyone. Last week marked the 25th anniversary of Srebrenica, and even our own Foreign Office representative at the European Human Rights Council made a statement that we must reflect and learn from this. 25 years ago, since then, we witnessed genocides, mass murders, and we still keep trading with countries that commit these genocides. I mean, we've known for the last couple of years what China's doing to Uyghur Muslims, and we're still trading. So I think, do I have any hope that we will take any stern action? I don't think so when the trade's into billions. So I think we haven't learned on ethnic cleansing. You know, when 8,000 Muslims were killed in Srebrenica, tens of thousands displaced, and yet 25 years later, you can see what's happened in the Middle East, what's happening now to Muslims in China. So I think we will hear some sort of statements from the Foreign Office. I don't think it'll be stern enough, and China will get away with it unless we can then rally around all our Western partners, our partners in the Middle East, partners around the world, to actually take a step until this happens. We may witness even a bigger genocide than we think, because when China thinks it can get away with it, and then there'll be another Srebrenica, and there'll be another like the Yazidis genocide, there'll be another like mass murder of innocent people. And this is not about religion.
No, it's not about religion, is it?
This is about a person like you and me practicing their own faith, being dragged out their homes and forced to do something against your own beliefs, your own faith. It's absolutely abhorrent, and it's evil, it's inhumane. And it's not me being a Sikh or anybody being a Muslim. It's we being human beings. And we have to put pressure on the government. But we got to stop this trade with China.
Okay, I mean, is that something that is feasible? Ravi, before I carry on, actually, and I want to bring Kiran in on this as well, I mean, I do need to say, the Chinese ambassador has dismissed claims that there's ethnic cleansing going on of the Uyghurs. He said that they enjoy peaceful, harmonious coexistence with other ethnic groups of people. That's what he said. He dismissed the video over the weekend as fake news. We tried to get someone from the Chinese embassy on the program today to discuss this a bit further. Still had no response.
Well, let the UN go in. Let the UN go in openly, like they did in Iraq for the weapons inspectors. They were very quick to do that in Iraq when it was all based on lies. Now these are based on statements of people day and night, and we're saying, well, yeah, okay, it may be happening, it may not. And same happens to the Yazidi people in Iraq. Until it was too late, then they declared a genocide. It's easy to declare genocide when it's out of sight. I've personally seen the damage this does to the whole community, to a group of people. Yeah. And yet we will let it happen. And people, I'm sorry to say, that people will let it happen because mostly these are Muslim people. If these are Europeans being prosecuted, it'll be a very different story.
Do you think Ravi has a point there? Let me know, 81869. Is it only the right sort of person who is talked about? Get in touch. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Right. Ravi, Kieran, I will come to you in a moment, but an interesting point Ravi made there about cutting trade with China. Is that really feasible, Ravi?
Yes, why not? I mean, we work with partners. The only sad thing I feel now is because of the Brexit situation, we're not really part of Europe. And Europe and UK and USA, Canada, we can all play our part. But then again, me being a humanitarian, I can tell you that, Europe, Canada, except Germany, all the other countries are supplying Saudis who are dropping bombs on Yemen. So, we have this... like in a way, two-tier system where to sell weapons, we're unite. But when it comes to finding peace, we're all fragmented. So if there's a will, it can change.
Well,
a
petition now backing the move to impose sanctions such as asset freezes, travel bans, has now got more than 100,000 signatures, which means this is going to be considered for debate in Parliament. So we will wait to see what happens out of there. But the Chinese embassy, the Chinese officials said that if the UK does go that far to impose sanctions on any individuals in China, China will certainly make a resolute response to it as well. So we could ourselves also face some sort of backlash here. I want to come back to Kerry Allen here from BBC Monitoring on that issue of trade and diplomacy. Clearly this is something that has a lot of far-reaching effects and impacts and consequences, doesn't it, on trade? Just how much of a trade relationship is there between China and the UK? Can we really afford, as Ravi has said, to cut trade with China?
It's very difficult. And China's been increasingly bringing in the example of, well, what's been happening in the world with COVID-19 and saying just how many countries are dependent on China to supply PPE and other such products. And it's saying that if countries don't kind of recognize now that China can be a friend, I mean, it says that all along there's been criticism from Western governments, very much the US, in line with the UK, Australia too, criticising China and in this instance saying that it's fake news what is happening in Xinjiang, that it's saying that we're starting to see some changes now, that because China's been going into other countries and helping out, maybe people should reevaluate their ideas about what the Chinese government has been saying. So this is a message that's coming out more and more in China, that actually Xinjiang is a region that has a huge trade industry and can help people as much as anywhere else in China, and people should be wanting to benefit from that, not to criticize China because of what it sees as US and UK brainwashing.
That is the debate here, isn't it? How much are people willing, how much does the life of one Uyghur Muslim cost for China? They're saying, look, we are helping in so many other ways. Do you really want to, jeopardize that effectively? Is what is being said here. What are your thoughts? Get in touch, 81869. Read a couple of texts out, then go to Kieran. So a text here says, I'm disgusted yet again about what's happening to Muslims around the world, especially to the Uyghur Muslims. British government should have taken the first step to condemn sanctions. I discourage people from buying Chinese goods. Another one saying, morning, I feel sympathy with the Muslims in China as I do for people from all faiths who are being persecuted. But so far, not one Islamic state country has come to support them and never do for any Muslims, so how and why should non-Islamic countries pay any attention as well? That's an interesting point, isn't it? Do you agree? Let me know, 03459 440 445. So Kieran, that's an issue you wanted to talk about, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think I agreed with your previous caller, Ravi, in that a humanitarian issue. We all need to be bothered about it. But it is a point to consider that, it is Muslims being persecuted here, but yet no Muslim state country has come forward. And it comes back down to the point that China is very powerful. COVID has highlighted that because they manufacture so many things, including the PPE that we all have that massive crisis over. So I think the biggest way that we can deal with this, and Keir Starmer tried to say this to the Prime Minister yesterday in Prime Minister Questions, is we need to start looking at economic sanctions. And we don't need to cut all trade, because then we're going to shoot our own foot when we do that. But we need to start having this dialogue now with China saying, look, this is an issue. We know you've denied it with Andrew Marr. However, this is what our reports show. And as Ravi mentioned, let the United Nations in. If you're so confident that you're not doing this, it's not modern-day genocide, then let the UN in and let's sort this out, because otherwise there are going to be economic sanctions. And that's what we as an international community, including Trump and Boris and all the European nations and Muslim state countries, if they would like to join, need to do, really. Because if we want to stand on our foot and say that we're ethical and we're this and we're that, then we need to do this. Yes, but look at Hong Kong. We've stood up for ourselves there with China, haven't we?
Again, yeah, Hong Kong is another issue there that the Chinese ambassador also had an issue with as well. But I want to focus on that Islamic country point that you made and that was made in this text as well. Kerry, what have countries such as Pakistan, which does rely on trade with China, what has been said there by Pakistan, by Saudi Arabia, by Turkey? Is it anything that's coming out there against what's happening against to Uyghur Muslims in China?
There have been criticisms previously, very much so with Turkey, with the treatment of Uyghur Muslims. So we've seen a lot of press coverage on that. China's been very, very critical of Turkey as a result of that. But countries like Pakistan, there's a complex relationship because of China's existing tensions with India, that it wants to keep Pakistan on side, and Pakistan also because it's had problems with Al-Qaeda and high-ranked terrorist groups, that it wants to be seen as a negotiator with a lot of Central Asian countries in trying to keep the peace. So there are wider politics at work here. It's not just largely pulled down to the Uyghur Muslims. And one thing I should mention is that these are one of 56 ethnic groups in China. So China sees it as almost undue coverage that's being focused on one particular group in China. I mean, obviously, yeah, we've been talking about Hong Kong as well. This is another group of people, the Canton people, who live in the south, but China has such a diversity of people that it's saying that it believes that the Western world is focusing too much attention on this group. There are also Hui Muslims in the west of China as well, and they don't get anywhere near as much attention.
Kerry, thank you for that. So Rifat's got in touch from Edinburgh saying, I think it's absolutely disgusting that everyone's turned a blind eye to this, but it's not lack of awareness. Muslim countries have chosen to ignore this because China is a superpower. Look at Pakistan. Imran Khan's quick to condemn India over Kashmir, but has said nothing about the persecution of Muslims in China. Yet there is a moral duty for Muslim leaders under Islam to stop this persecution and abuse. As for Western countries, I feel it's because Muslims, so they choose to ignore the issue. That's what Rifat thinks. Some messages also coming in on Facebook. Shazia says the UK is now condemning only to appease the US. I wonder if the UK would have acknowledged anything had there not been any trouble brewing between China and the US. Politics and war make the world go around. If the UK was that bothered, they wouldn't continue to sell arms to the Saudi. Khan says UK only help where it's beneficial, so no doubt they will. Shmuel says, why can't Muslim countries fight for themselves? Luth Khan says, the UK I think should do something to help. However, I do believe Imran Khan also needs to step up, and Muslim countries such as Saudi and Pakistan need to take much more action. And Sabina says, come on, we've got a right-leaning Tory government. Of course they won't intervene. I think other Muslim countries must do more. I sadly can't see the UK intervening, I'm afraid. Just look at Palestine, Yemen, Kashmir. Boris won't give two hoots. The bad treatment of Uyghur Muslims has been happening for years, and whilst this news has been appearing on social media for a while now, why is the UK only thinking about it now? Where is the Saudi government? Thank thank you for all your comments. Keep them coming in. 03459 440 445. Nick's also just tweeted in saying, been listening to a fascinating discussion on BBC Asian Network about Uyghur Muslims. The way people are being treated and imprisoned is appalling. I didn't know about this until I heard it on the radio today. Uyghur lives matter. So is that a part of the issue here as well? People just simply aren't aware of what is going on in the Xinjiang province. Let me know your thoughts. If you are someone who's listening to this right now and this is news to you, how is it making you feel? 03459 440 445. So we're going to go to Sharmeen and Navid in a moment, but Mohammed's got in touch. Morning, Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing today?
Not too bad at all. What are your thoughts on this?
I totally disagree with everything I've heard today so far. I really don't believe the Uyghurs in general are being persecuted. I think it's really the other way around. I think it's the British and the foreign and Western media that's actually persecuting China.
What makes you think that? What makes you think that?
Like I said in the message, China's very progressive. It has moved forward very quick. In less than 100 years, it's taken out the majority of its population out of poverty. In the next 20 years, there will pretty much be no more poverty in China. And on top of that, the relationship with Russia and Iran makes China even more despicable in the eyes of the Western world, because they don't like China, they don't like Russia, they don't like Iran, they don't like Korea. So all of these countries binding up together makes it a big nightmare for the Western world. And what makes it even worse is the OBOR, the Silk Road, the One Belt, One Road, that covers pretty much the entirety of the Asian subcontinent. It takes a lot of the Middle East into consideration. It takes in Africa into consideration. It takes part of Europe into consideration. And we can't even forget Latin America. Now, all these countries, they get very favorable options compared to the Western world, which, in other words, bullies people into submission, whereas the terms that come from China are very profitable and beneficial for both countries to do business, which is why a lot of the world is actually turning to China for business.
Mohammed,
yes.
I understand you. You're clearly very well versed and know your stuff when it comes to this. But one thing I want to come back to is you said China is a very progressive state here. What is progressive about a country that censors what people in the country can see on the internet?
You see what it is? There's a lot of propaganda going on, and obviously it's been going on for a long time.
Can you answer my question, please?
I will do. If you just give me a moment. This pretty little world of ours hasn't always been like this. If we look back in time, we could let history remind us. We could just go back to Desert Storm when the President of America was actually getting people to come on board and convince the world that babies are thrown out of incubators.
Yeah. Can you answer my question about, we're talking about China today. I want to know, and I asked you a very simple question. What is progressive about a country that censors the internet?
It loves it. But the thing is, it also sees the dark side as well. There's a lot of people who actually sit back in offices and they all their job is trolling. And what their job is, day in, day out, is just to churn out negative information about certain countries. And there's offices all over the world. There's even offices in London with hundreds of people employed just to do this one job. Negative comments all day long. Now, the thing is, Uyghur Muslims, I'm a Muslim myself.
Again, one more time, I'm going to ask you, because you haven't even answered the question. I've asked you a very simple question. Is a country that censors what its people can see on the internet, is that a progressive country?
Yes, absolutely.
What makes a country, what makes it progressive?
Everything, the people, the system.
No, what makes a country progressive if it is censoring what people can see on the internet?
It's not censoring. It's actually responding to.
No, it is censoring. It is censoring what people can see on the internet.
We can go round and round.
No. We can go round and round because you're just not. Right. I'm going to come back to Kerry here. Kerry Allen here. If I'm wrong, fair enough. But has there been censorship of what people in China can see on the internet?
There has, yes. And the reason that China says that this censorship is necessary. It says, again, I mean, it likes to reiterate these ideas that there might be extremism on Chinese platforms. So any content that might be dangerous to its netizens, it says that's the logic behind censorship. So that practice has actually been happening ever since China got the internet, which was a month before the Tiananmen massacre in 1989. So literally, if that hadn't have happened, China's internet that we see today could have been very, very different. It could have been like, the one we see here in the West where people have freedom of press. But ever since 1989, China has been actively censoring and removing content from platforms.
Mohammed?
If we go by your logic, how is that different to any other country that has internet and media? What is China actually doing that is different?
It's stopping people from finding out information that it doesn't deem that is suitable for its people to see. That doesn't seem very progressive. In fact, that seems very...
It's not provable, though. If it's provable...
Well, it is provable, and it has been proven, Mohammed.
I mean, it hasn't. I mean, it's all allegations. Okay. All we're trying to say here is that these are big, massive concentration camps which hold up to 3 million people out of a population.
Have you seen the video? Okay, fine. All right, then. Well, you don't want to believe that they are censoring the internet. Fair enough, right? Take the politics out of it. What about human rights abuses against the Uyghurs then? What about not being able to follow your religion? These things have been independently verified by other countries.
See what it is? These are all allegations.
No. These are things that have been independently verified by other countries. You can say they're allegations as much as you want. They're happening.
They're not happening, mate. I totally disagree. Absolutely disagree. Like I said before, China, Russia, Iran, these countries are the future, and these guys are just trying to undermine them no matter what it takes.
Okay, Mohammed, I understand your point there. You are very certain that these issues aren't happening. Thank you very much for coming onto the program to explain your situation. Mala has got in touch on WhatsApp saying, my point is that the Chinese should be condemned if this is true, but my concern is also if this is happening, where are all the Muslim countries? What are they doing about it? Why don't we hear from them? Look what's happening in Yemen. Whenever there are issues regarding Muslims, why does it become Europe's responsibility? Right, thank you to everyone. I've got Naved and Sharmeen to come, also Aziz. Let's go to Minakshi, who's called in from Nottingham right now. Minakshi, what are your thoughts on this?
Good morning. Actually, once again, I'm totally confused about this new discussion. Over a decade ago, it was the only discussion which was being held every time was against the Muslims. They are terrorists, they are causing this, they are causing this. And now suddenly everybody has turned their thoughts and started saying that the Chinese are mistreating the Muslims. It's a bit awkward because, why are all the Muslim countries just keeping quiet about it? And why is all this, every time any problem or any pointing out arises from the Western side? When the Western people had all these demonstrations, COVID, BMI, did any of the Asian nations point fingers at them? Did anyone tell them how they were wrong in their policies? Nobody. They all kept quiet, even the Chinese. But yet, day in and day out now, first it was the Huawei, they are,
Huawei is what you're talking about. Yeah. Minakshi, I take your point there. Thank you very much. I mean, it's a question that people keep asking today. Why are Islamic countries, places such as Pakistan, staying quiet, staying silent on this? Thank you, Minakshi. All right, let's go to Sharmeen, then Navid, and we've also got Aziz Isa Elkan, someone who I spoke to last year, actually, a Uyghur Muslim here in the UK right now. Aziz, thank you very much for your time. I will come to you in a moment. But Sharmeen, how do you feel about this? Morning.
Good morning, Kassa. I think, first of all, it's really important to acknowledge that the treatment of Uyghur Muslims the mistreatment has been going on for a few years now. So for anybody to deny that, as you said, there's so much evidence now from people and so many stories coming out. So that's the first thing. So for your previous caller, Mohammed, to not acknowledge or not to believe it is, that you need to separate facts from fiction. It is a fact. It's not made up thing. Now, the reason why China gets away with such impunity is because of the power it wields across the world. And it is very sad that Pakistan and countries like Saudi Arabia haven't spoken up, but they won't because of their ties with China. And at the end of the day, politics and money plays a bigger part than humanity, unfortunately. But I think everybody's point is completely valid. Just last year, the Saudi Crown Prince was shaking hands with the leader of China and saying that this is not, they're just education camps. And the reason is because China buys lots of oil from Saudi. And that's one of the main reasons. And the reasons why the UK is now speaking up, regardless of what's going on in Kashmir, in Yemen, in Palestine, the reason why they're speaking about this is because obviously they have an agenda against China. But putting that aside, the plight of the Uyghur Muslims has to be recognized, and the international community has to do something, whether that's sanctions or just speaking out in the first instance. It's an absolute must.
Yes, thank you, Sharmeen. Let's go to Naveed on this as well. Naveed Siddiqui, what would you say? You're the founding trustee of New Horizons in British Islam. Sharmeen and others have been saying, that there is a point here. There is a valid point that people like Imran Khan, who is, Prime Minister of Pakistan, and other Islamic countries, they're not speaking out here. How do you feel about that?
Well, we need to, I agree with what Sharmeen was saying, and we need to listen really closely to people who are Uyghur. People like Rahima, who is one of the bravest ladies that I know, trying to understand what it is we can do here, because the phrase "speak truth to power" has never been truer here. China is a very, very powerful country economically and the way that it's set up in the world. And that huge reach and power of China and the ascendancy of China in terms of its sort of military and economic power means that we're never going to be far from the reality of politics and the political relationships that countries like Pakistan have with China and the complexities of those. But this is one of the major moral issues of our day, and given the strength and power of China, it means that we have to see this primarily as a human rights issue first and foremost. Of course, there is an element of the religious identity of Uyghur Muslims, but that's just one part of their identity. Remember, these are not people who are like Muslim migrants or a minority who have traveled to China and are trying to adjust, because that's usually the narrative that we have. These are a people, and they have lived there for not hundreds, but probably thousands of years. And they are being stripped of who they are, essentially. It's their language, their culture, their music, every aspect about them. I don't think we should hold out much hope for Muslim-majority countries to speak out publicly. They are probably going to do their work without going onto the world stage, and it's going to be very frustrating for us. But we need to keep on the pressure and the awareness, because it's very difficult to shift a country like China. And I think that the Chinese people themselves are probably more in the dark about this than we are right now. We are waking up to this slowly, but it's a very real and very, very major issue, and it's very, very deep. We're not talking about a few people.
No.
It's a very systematic, huge operation to strip a people of who they are and transform them through the power of the state into something they are not, almost like putting people through a sausage meat machine and making them into something else.
Naveed, Sharmeen, really appreciated the pair of you coming onto the programme. Thank you both for your thoughts. I want to finish now with Aziz Isa Elkan, who is a Uyghur Muslim, someone I've spoken to on the programme before, last year in fact, where he told me just things that have stayed with me about the last time you spoke to his mother, for example. Aziz, thank you so much for coming back on. How are you doing?
I am fine, thank you. Thank you for having me for the interview.
No problem, no problem. Since we've last spoken, we have heard more countries, we've heard the UK Foreign Secretary as well actually speak out about what is happening to Uyghur Muslims, to your people. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you have hope for the future now?
Yes, we never giving up our hope for the future. And I want to make a few points here. I heard in this program a few our friends. It's very good points about the Muslim world's regard on the Uyghur crisis, Uyghur tragedy, and the situation is not getting better on the ground. It is terrifying. Every day, Uyghurs are losing their lives, and yes, there's a big point. Few big points. Yes, this is not about something like Uyghurs are thousands of or 100,000. Now we are talking about up to 5 million Uyghur people's fate. This is one of the most and massive genocide we can say in our history in the century. This is yes. There's questions came up why the West mixing up about Islamophobia or about how the West treating the Muslims. I just want to tell, please don't mess up the world's problem. This Uyghur problem, Islam is one of the factors about the Uyghur ethnicity. Mm-hmm. Uyghurs, we are a nation. The Uyghurs are not traveling somewhere from the outside. We've been living there for more than 5,000 years, even before China established their own state. Last time China occupied that region in 1949 with the Soviet Union's support. This is about state, about the people. Religion is one of the disguised factor of this Chinese atrocity.
Yeah.
I have academic friends, professors. They're all in the camp. Even my poor family. And yes, to your question, yes, I gave you interview last year about my mother. I was so desperate. This year, 8th of January, I saw my mother on the Chinese CCTV, and the Chinese reporters interviewed my mother. Of course, it's all staged, and my mother was accusing me I'm not telling the truth. That's about China's propaganda. Yes, there's talk about the Islamic world, the West, about Saudi, about Pakistan. Should people understand about Pakistan's stance?
But
yes,
we also need to talk about China as well. Thank you very much. You're absolutely right there to talk about the fact that it's something that every country needs to talk about. Aziz, really appreciate you coming onto the program again. Thank you so much for your time. Just want to clarify again one more time, we have contacted the Chinese embassy trying to get someone on the program today to talk about this. Not yet heard back, but previously they have denied all persecution of Uyghur Muslims. Right, coming up to 11:30 here on The Big Debate. It's time for Newsbeat with Rasheen Hasty.
Asian Network.
The government's been accused of failing more than 1 million people.
Newsbeat.
A group of MPs has accused the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, of drawing a line under helping more than 1 million people needing financial help due to the coronavirus crisis. That includes freelancers, people on short-term contracts, and those who are self-employed like Kate, who hasn't been able to get any support.
He made these announcements with lots of promises, and when you actually looked into it, it became more apparent that it was all smoke and mirrors and obviously didn't apply to us.
Well, the Chancellor insists his policies were right for the first stage of the crisis.
Newsbeat.
A cabinet minister has said people in England will have to wear a face mask when collecting takeaways when new rules come into effect tomorrow. The official guidance on masks in shops is being published later. Dr. Chand Nakpal is from the British Medical Association and says the message should be clear.
If the vast majority were to wear masks in situations where they cannot socially distance, that will make a significant difference in containing the spread of the virus.
Boris Johnson has arrived in Scotland, where the main talking point is going to be Scottish independence. The SNP think he's there because he's worried about it. The Prime Minister said the government's response to the coronavirus crisis has shown the strength in the union. 9 people were arrested last night after ignoring warnings not to go to Anfield. It's because they were celebrating lifting the Premier League trophy. And Dave won last year with Psychodrama, and this year's nominees for the Mercury Prize are out. Stormzy and Dua Lipa are 2 out of the 12 acts up for the Best British or Irish Album of the Year. Here's our music reporter, Steve Holden.
It's the usual mix of artists you know, like Charlie XCX and Kano, and ones you might not have heard of, like Porridge Radio and Lanterns on the Lake. Laura Marling and Michael Kiwanuka are both nominated again, and first-time nominees include Georgia, Moses Boyd, Anna Meredith and Sports Team, whose album was locked in a recent chart battle with Lady Gaga.
We'll have more from Steve on the Lunchtime Newsbeat at 12:45.
This is the British Asian Sound. BBC
Asian Network.
11:32 here on The Big Debate. Morning, everyone. Casa Alom here for the next hour and a bit, and we've got loads coming up on the programme. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Liverpool and celebrations going too far in a lot of people's thoughts, actually. Not just in Liverpool, but with Leeds and West Brom as well. I mean, was it right that they had, you know, like Leeds had an open top bus, didn't they, after getting promoted to the Premier League? People saying, oh, this only happens once in a while, got to have a bit of fun. But during this time, is that really the right way to celebrate? I want to hear your thoughts, 81869. Of course, we've got the ladies' first panel after midday as well. So looking forward to hearing all your thoughts on the ladies' first panel. But I just want to wrap up a few bits with the Uyghur Muslims debate. Loads of messages came in. Let me read them out. Kieran says, the situation with Uyghur Muslims is a genocide. The UN was created after the abhorrent Holocaust of Jews to ensure nothing like that ever happened again. Right now, China is committing a genocide against Uyghur Muslims on a scale comparable. UN and all nation leaders must condemn, hold China accountable. Again, I will say China is denying that there has been any ethnic cleansing of Uyghur Muslims, saying it's baseless and that they enjoy peaceful, harmonious existence with other ethnic groups of people in the nation. Thank you very much, though, Kieran, for your thoughts. Simon's emailed in saying, countries will put business before people and human rights. When trade is at stake, Iraq, Afghanistan was done for profit, not humanity. Countries interfere in other people's business far too much. Another message here says, India censors what people see on the internet. Are they progressive? They're equally as bad as China on religious freedom. How about a program about fate of minorities in India? Good suggestion. It is something that we have talked about in the past. No doubt we will again in the future. I don't like whataboutism on the programme. I mean, we treat every issue fairly and give a lot of issues time on the programme. No doubt that is something we will talk about again in the future as well. Mala says, my point is that the Chinese should be condemned if this is true, but my concern is this is also happening. Where are all the Muslim countries? What are they doing about it? Why don't we hear from them? Karen, I think, says, from Hereford, says, hi Asia Network, whilst I'm completely disgusted with China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims, why is the debate only intensified now? The treatment of Uyghur Muslims in the so-called education camps has been known about globally for months, and the only reason the government is bringing this up now is because the US and UK are afraid of the Chinese being a powerful economic power. Thank you for your comment there. And one more, a text from AK saying it's a real shame that in this day and age we are seeing persecution. Trade is a different matter because we're still trading with India even after persecution of Sikhs in 1984, and no one's been made to answer for that. Politics and politicians have their own agenda, and trade is worth more than lives. That's what AK thought. Thank you to everyone for really getting involved. There were so many messages I didn't read out. I haven't had time to go through them all. We've got lots more to talk about, but it's really good that you all got involved with the debate today. This is something that we will be talking about again in the future. It's 11:36 here on the